Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today. Let's do it. Unexplained stories from places that shouldn't exist. Please remember to like, share, comment, hype, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. And stay tuned for a very special new visitor coming up next.
Many years ago, my family and I moved from California to Nebraska. I was still a young kid, probably 5 to 6 years old. We were driving through Nevada, and shortly after Las Vegas, we needed to stop and fuel up. We stopped at your typical old-school gas station that rings when you pull up to the pump. I don't remember it that well, but my dad told me it looked normal. He got out to stretch while my mom went inside to pay for gas. My mom said that when she walked in, the gas station had quite a few people inside, despite us being the only car there. When she walked up to the counter to pay for gas, everyone turned to her and the lights went out. She ran outside, where my dad witnessed everything and helped her into the car, and we sped off down the interstate, not caring whether we ran out of gas or not. To this day, my mom says that's one of the scariest encounters because she can't explain nor figure out exactly what was going on. And yes, we found a better gas station down the road and made it to Nebraska. A couple years ago, a buddy and I got turned around on a side road in rural northern Missouri. I had no service for GPS and it was pouring rain, so I headed south toward my destination, hoping to run into a main highway. We ended up coming into the town of Skidmore, Missouri. It's a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, but there's something dark about that place. Infamously, in the 80s, a man known as the town bully was killed in broad daylight in the middle of town there. Not one person spoke up about who killed him, and it's never been solved despite many witnesses. There's also been disappearances and a brutal crime a few years ago involving a baby being cut out of a woman's womb. Keep in mind, this is a town of only 270 people. As we drove down the main drag, several people gave us a blank but intimidating stare, completely unnerving. Once we got out of town, my buddy mentioned he'd had a sense of impending doom or danger as we drove through, weirdly enough. I'd been feeling the same way. I'd never had such a persistent gut feeling of danger like that before. We agreed to never ever go through Skidmore again. There's something seriously evil about that town. It shouldn't exist. Driving in rural areas in New England near the borders of Vermont and Massachusetts, so I'm not sure which one I was in. It was late. Well, okay, so late it was actually early, and there was fog, dense fog, like Silent Hill levels of fog. And like an idiot who dies in the opening scene of a horror movie, I'm driving on back roads. First, my headlight just up and goes out. I cannot use high beams because of fog. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I haven't seen a house or town in a long time. The car starts making noise, and the check engine light comes on, so I pull over. There's not much around, a field and fog and darkness. Creepy as hell. I gamely look at the engine, just to fix electronics, not engines. I tighten all the things I know. The car now won't start. So I'm in the dark, in the middle of nowhere, on the side of the road. Because of the nature rules of how things work, my cell phone has no service as well. It's like one big cliche, but I'm not stupid enough to go wandering the roads right now. So I recline my seat and decide to take a nap for a couple hours until the sun comes up. I wake up. The sun is coming up, the fog is going away, and I'm on the main street of a tiny town, parked in front of what looks to be like the Bates Motel house. Houses everywhere. It was the creepiest feeling. I was sure I was off in the woods. There was not a light on in any house all night. There was a service station 50 yards up the road. I walked up to it and talked to the guy who looked perfectly normal. He walked over to look at the car and asked me to try to start it, and it did. The fucking thing turned over right away, and both the headlights were working. I drove on. Never got the name of that little village, and I couldn't find it on a map. I always felt like I was in this big setup for a horror movie that just didn't pan out. A group of us were camping at a big state park with a bunch of horses. We had more people than horses, so my best friend and I went out riding just the two of us, then came back and switched out for the larger group to go. At the time, we're in our early 20s, while everyone else on the trip is in their 30s or 40s. They had made a bunch of jokes when we left about not getting lost because it got dark fast and we were in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, which means, of course, when they went out, they got lost. To make a long story short, one of the women forgot to mention she was on a few new medications and convinced the rest of the group to follow her down a steep deer trail. A different rider had had surgery in a green horse and had to bail off, and this all accumulated with them calling us to come save them. In the dark, in the middle of nowhere, they originally wanted us to bring a horse trailer, but neither of us had driven one before, and the ones we had were massive. So we took a car and went to try and hunt them down. They said they'd found a road and dropped a pin in it on Google Maps, so off we went. The road was hidden off a highway. It's pitch black outside by now, and we can only see a few feet ahead of us. The road immediately turns to gravel and starts to shrink in size the more we go down it. Then it starts to go up and down increasingly steep hills. The whole time we're joking and laughing until we run across a house. It's one of those farmhouses you know shouldn't be inhabited because it looks like it's about to fall over. It's got barbed wire and shit all over the lawn, and a dark figure is watching us from the porch the closer we approach. Could have been a person. It probably was a person, but like I said, it's dark. We managed to find our people, turn the car around, and get whoever needs to be in the car in it. My best friend and I take care turns between driving and leading horses, with the car in front going slow because shit is steep. The horses are tired and misbehaving. The riders are all upset at one another, and we know we're going to have to take this whole parade on the highway in the dark because it's the only way back to camp. I never mentioned it to anyone, but the house wasn't there on the way back. I was relocating across Texas, and as I normally do, was driving through the night to skip traffic and because it's more serene that way. I was driving straight through central Texas going northwest, so seeing the hill country change to desert in full moon was super cool. Anyways, I was driving with my now ex-wife and we were running low on gas. Luckily, we were pulling into a tiny no-name town and we could see an old gas station come around the bend. The encounter happened at about 2 a.m. Now this town has only one road, and the station was right at the edge of town at the end of it. When I say old, I mean very old. The type that you have no option of prepaying. You simply flip up the handle on the machine, and you hear the pump inside start, struggling to get gas from the reservoir. It had the old-style tick reader too, not a thing electrical on it. I, before, being the young man I was, had never seen one of these, so I walked into the store to buy the gas before I pumped. The store only had one light in the far back on, and I almost thought it was closed, since it was barely brighter inside than it was out in the moonlight. Upon entering, I saw the place was deserted. No customers, no workers, nothing. However, there was an odd tune playing on someone's radio that I couldn't place. An old-sounding upbeat piano piece was playing somewhere around the corner inside, and I heard shuffling once I walked closer to the source. This place made me feel scared. Not the, whoa, this is creepy scared, but the all hairs are on end, something is seriously wrong here, but I can't figure it out scared. As I turned the corner, I saw a young man standing next to a large radio and dancing. His dancing, though, was extremely off-putting, and seriously didn't match the tune at all. Though the radio was cranking out what sounded like ragtime, this guy was running his hands up and down his body and pretty much feeling himself with his eyes closed in what looked like bliss. He was going far slower than the music and definitely wasn't on tempo. For some reason, I couldn't speak. I couldn't even move. I was in a trance as every part of me screamed to turn and leave. Finally, I said, "Excuse me, I just need some gas." The guy kept dancing. I said it a little louder, and he finally slowed down a bit and opened his eyes and focused on me. But it was like looking at a finely cooked steak. He was looking almost through me and silently walking to the register. Not saying anything, I said, just $20, please. He again didn't say anything and just stood behind the ancient register. So I just figured maybe he didn't speak the language or was embarrassed I caught him dancing. So I laid the money on the counter and went outside, hoping he'd turn on the pump. I filled up, told my wife about the weird-ass scene in there, and turned off the pump to kill the horrible grinding noise from the interior pump fighting against gravity to get the gas up. The weird thing is, when we were leaving, I looked back in the window, and the guy was still standing there behind the counter. This may sound fine, but my money was still on the counter in front of him. It was like he was a robot who just turned off once I left. This is where it gets super weird. A couple months later, I was driving back to San Antonio to visit family, and we figured we'd stop at the old gas station to see it in the daytime since it had become somewhat of a running joke between us. We pulled into this tiny town, and the thing was gone. The lot it sat on at the end of the road. No old pump. Wasn't even there. It was just grass, no rubble, no lighting, nothing. It was like somebody picked it up and moved it. It looked like nothing had been there for years. Still get freaked out thinking about it.
Alright guys, we'll get back to the shout-outs tomorrow. I'm again hoping that you guys are still enjoying that longer Sunday format, but more importantly, all the way from the streets of Puerto Rico to his new home on Long Island, this is Batman. Hey buddy, say hi. We just got him. I picked him up last night from a flight. It's a rescue service, and they were really great. So he is I know nobody wants to see me right now. He's a Chihuahua Terrier mix, and I think he's adorable. He's super cute. It was his first night here, and it's like, so cold on Long Island right now. But anyway, he's adjusting, and he's the sweetest cuddle butt. Anyway, you'll be seeing more of Batman throughout our video, so have a great day, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Say bye, buddy.
When my brother and I were 10 and 12 respectively, our family went on a hike through the cemetery and into the woods not far from our house. My brothers and I would explore these woods every day, even camped in them before. We knew it like the back of our hands. Anyway, as the family hit our usual spot by the creek halfway through, Brother 1 and I said we'd be back in a few. We wanted to wander off further up the creek, so we did. We came across a very large hill we had never seen before. It was littered with what looked like someone's worldly possessions, as if they turned a house upside down, shook out the contents, took the house, and left. There were tons of painted X's on the trees, showing someone intended to cut them down at some point. We poked around for a few when we thought we heard our mom hollering at us, so we turned tail and walked maybe 20 feet back down the hill to where our parents were. The entire encounter was maybe 45 minutes long on our end. As soon as our mom saw us, we got the beating of a lifetime. We'd actually been gone almost 4 hours. She never saw us walk up any hill and remembered seeing us meandering down the straight path by the creek, not turning up a hill that was 20 feet away. She and her husband and our brother combed the woods for over 4 hours, screaming our names, and couldn't find hide nor hair of us. We pleaded our case and even tried showing her the hill. Surely she was messing with us. So we stomped up to the turnoff for the hill, and it was gone. Nowhere to be seen. For years we explored the woods, determined to find that hill. We covered miles and miles off-path woods. As we got older, we mapped it out. To this day, that hill does not exist. We never found it again. Never found the weird furniture, toys, clothes, and other household items that were scattered across the hill. I never met anyone in the area that had a clue about the hill. We probably just wandered way further than we meant to, but I always found it weird that we never found that hill again. A few years ago, I was driving home from Florida to Pennsylvania with 3 of my friends. It was late, probably sometime between 1 and 3 a.m., and we were somewhere in North Carolina. We needed gas soon, so we agreed to take the next exit off the highway that had a gas station. The second I took the exit, it was pitch black. There were no streetlights along the exit ramp or on the ramps or the road up ahead. The only lights in the area came from my headlights and the lights from 95 behind us. The sheer darkness was enough to creep me out, especially because my vision isn't the best to begin with, but really sucks when it's dark. But we really needed gas. So we pressed on. While driving to the gas station, the only building we saw was a massive old-looking church. We drove by a sign informing us that we were in a town, but there were no businesses or houses other than the church. When we finally got to the gas station, we saw an assortment of giant farm animal statues outside the building, standing tall and barely illuminated. They weren't fenced off, and there were no signs explaining why they were there. So if it's considered an attraction, it's a confusing one at best. However, the weirdest thing happened inside the gas station. With me on this trip were one other girl and 2 guys. We had all been friends for years, and our dynamic includes making fun of each other a lot, but never deliberately messing with each other's heads. At this point in our trip, we were all tired and eager to get home. The gas station itself was huge on the inside, filled to the brim with shelves, all of which were jam-packed with an assortment of junk food and junk items. In hindsight, this seems weird, given how empty the town was, but at the time we were all distracted by just how much stuff this gas station held. The other girl and I went to the restroom, while the 2 guys paid for gas. The restroom was hard to get to, as there were boxes piled just outside the door, and the sign just had a piece of paper with "Women" scrawled across it in green highlighter. Upon leaving the restroom, we saw one of our friends entering the men's restroom, also marked by a piece of paper with "Men" written in highlighter. He gave us a weird look as he entered, but we shrugged it off and walked toward the other friend, who we could see standing at the shelf a bit away. He was facing away from us, and as we approached, I started to get a bad feeling in my stomach. As we got closer, he turned and gave us the most sinister look I've ever seen. Alarm bells were going off in my head at this point, and my female friend and I proceed to the car, unsure of what to make of the interaction we just had. The second we stepped outside and looked toward the gas pumps, we saw the same 2 friends we had just seen standing behind us. The one who was entering the bathroom was leaning casually against the car, while the one who gave us a sinister look was finishing up pumping gas. My female friend and I were dumbfounded and asked them how they were standing in front of us when they were both just behind us a few seconds ago, and they looked at us like we had multiple heads. After paying for gas, the 2 immediately went back out to the car. The gas station gave off too weird of a vibe to wait in there for us. Sufficiently creeped out, we piled back in the car and noped out of there. I'm not sure why we saw 2 of my friends' doppelgangers in a gas station, or why the doppelgangers seemed to be in such a pissy mood, and I'm really not sure why the gas station had a collection of farm animal statues outside of it. I'm pretty content never going there again, though. That place definitely should not exist. This story takes place in the mid-90s, a time before widely used cell phones and GPS. My 2 best friends and I, freshly able to drive, decided we would head out on a Saturday to a water park in southern Missouri, about a 3-hour drive from our hometown in northwest Arkansas. We had never been before and just used road maps to get there. We had a pretty fantastic time, but as the sun started to reach the tree line, we thought we ought to head home. It's about 7 o'clock and we miss a turn, but my friend Paul, who was navigating, said not to worry. Another turn was coming up that would get us there just as fast. The next turn took us from detoured to completely lost. By 8 o'clock, we are on a road that seemed to be lacking in informative road signs and had 0 lights. We finally see a gas station and are relieved to get some directions as well as some gas. My friend Taylor and I go inside while Paul pumps the gas. We come inside and a very friendly old man in his early 60s gives us a very large grin and says, "Well, hello there." It was very Foghorn Leghorn-esque. Looked like an extreme hillbilly, but was very pleasant. We explained that we needed gas and wanted to fill up. He explained that he was about to shut down for the night, but would be happy to oblige us. He then said, something I'll never forget. "You have to make haste, though. Tonight's a buffer night." Taylor and I looked at each other and shared an awkward look. We asked him if he could point out our location on the road map. While he was finding it, two people entered the shop from the back and called out for the old man. He said he was up front. The two approached us, a man and a woman, and at first looked confused, but then as they hit with an epiphany, they smiled. They asked the old man, "Are these the guests tonight?" He shot them a look and said, "No, these are some lost children." The way he said "children" caused the hairs on my neck to stand up. Not sure why. They looked at us and said, "The three of you should make haste because tonight is buffer night." Two things scared the shit out of me right then. The first being, how did they know about Paul pumping gas out front when they came from the back? And the second being that they repeated the old man verbatim. We clarified the directions to get back on the main highway and paid for the gas without waiting for change. Taylor and I booked it out of the gas station to find Paul already in the passenger seat. When we got into the car, we were nearly airborne from the speed we took off at. Before we could say anything, Paul told us about how three men from across the street stood under a tree just watching him. He waved, but they didn't move a muscle. We just drove as fast as we could until we got back to the highway. To this day, I will still have a nightmare every so often about the gas station and what my imagination has twisted buffer night into being. One night in rural Georgia, I found what seemed like an alternate reality. It wasn't creepy at the time, but over the years I've started to get creeped out by how unusual the night was. It was late at night, and I was driving home from the Atlanta airport. Along the way, I got hungry and decided to pull off at an exit that had a Waffle House. I didn't even remember the name on the exit or what town this was in, but it was in western Georgia, maybe an hour or so from Atlanta. For those that don't know, nearly every Waffle House is the same. Same building setup, same menu, same food, even the servers all seem cut from the same cloth. They're no-nonsense people and often seem a little rough around the edges in a good way. Waffle House is a reassuring constant in an ever-changing world. But not this Waffle House. You could tell the difference from the moment you pull into the parking lot. The building was bigger than usual, mostly windows, and lit up the area like a beacon. I go inside what can only be described as the cleanest Waffle House I've ever seen. It practically glowed. Instead of just booths along the wall, they had actual dining tables. And the kitchen was behind a wall. Normally you can watch the cooks prepare the food just feet from the booth. There didn't seem to be any other customers either, which is practically unheard of. Everyone goes to the Waffle House, especially late at night after drinking. An attractive and incredibly pleasant woman bustled up and took my order, but otherwise left me alone in this bright restaurant that should have been filled up with people. She brought back my order, and it was probably the best damn waffle I've ever had. I finished eating, paid, and then got back on the road home. To this day, I haven't met anyone else that knows about the mythical, shining Waffle House on a hill, and I'm pretty sure it was something out of an alternative universe. So these happened when I was growing up along the Texas Gulf Coast. I don't want to name the specific town because there are still creepy things that happen out there. One time I'm hanging out with two of my friends and we decide to leave the house and go to our other friend's apartment. To get there, we cross the street and then head down a little side street to the back of the apartments. The side street's about 200 yards and makes a tight turn to the left. There's a deep ditch at the end of the road, easily 6 feet deep, and 8 to 10 feet across. As we got onto the street, there was a car in the ditch looking like it had just driven right in. We go to investigate and we can see there's someone in the driver's seat bent over the steering wheel, eyes closed. I and one of my friends start to get closer and are going to climb into the ditch. Our third friend grabbed us and shook his head. "Don't, it's a trap," he says. And we all look at each other, realizing he was right. We head in the other 400 feet into the apartments and get up to our friend's place. Once inside, we all look at our third friend and are like, "A trap?" Realizing how stupid that sounds, we all run back to the corner and the car is gone, with no tracks leading into or out of the ditch and no sign of the crash. We were gone maybe all of 2 minutes, maybe 3, not long enough to hoist a car up out of the ditch. Another time, my friend and I were out driving late at night, heading over to someone else's house. Out of the plants and refineries, it's pitch black with only the streetlight and the plant's torches lighting up at night. At one stop sign, we look to the left and there's a crowd of 100, maybe 150, walking down the street parallel to us. They had torches and baseball bats and were completely silent. We turned around and went home. Last one, I came home from school on a Friday, and my mom told me I had gotten a phone call reminding me I had promised to help someone move the next day. She had taken the address down, but not the name. Now, our town was laid out on a grid system. Given someone's address and street, I could tell you where they lived except for this address. Instead of the numbers everyone else had, this street was called Rust Street. I had to get out a key map to look it up since it was before the internet. Well, I wasn't the one to go strange places by myself, so I gathered up my friends and the 4 of us went on a Saturday to go help someone move. We managed to find Rush Street and eventually find the house. It was completely overgrown with weeds and some dead trees. We sat there for about 5 minutes and then decided to go to lunch, and D&D was a better way to spend the day. No one ever called to complain I had not shown up, and I was never able to find Rush Street again.